Hello, everyone. All right, so as he said, my name is Eleesha Martin, and I'm the recruiting manager or RPO manager for G&A Partners. And for those of you that aren't familiar with G&A Partners, we are a PEO, a professional employer organization, fancy term for HR outsourcing. And so what we do is we partner with companies and we assist them with their HR needs. We deliver world-class HR solutions to help build thriving businesses and make a difference in the lives of our clients and the employees that we serve. Our corporate office is located here in Houston, right on the outskirts of Katy, Texas, but we do have office locations all throughout the U.S. to better serve our clients nationwide. All right. So as he already said, I've been in recruiting for over 20 years, and I'm proud to say this month actually makes my 24th year in recruiting. So I'll be celebrating my 25th next year, excited about that. And I must say that the times we're living in now when it comes to our job market and recruiting is something I have never seen before. So I'm learning this along with everyone else, but really excited about the opportunity today to share with you all some of the tips and tricks that I've learned that has helped us to survive this current job market. All right, so today during our time, we're going to discuss the following: what's happening in the current job market, the continuation of the Great Resignation, redefining the current recruiting process, evaluating the interview process, and identifying some ways that you can not only attract top talent, but also retain them. And then, if necessary, partnering with an RPO, our third-party agency, to assist you with your recruiting efforts. All right, so the current job market. Let's first take a look at the current job market. And I must say I had to update this slide and it didn't come through in time, so I'm going to read from my notes on this one. When I initially submitted the presentation, it was around September, so the latest, greatest information was on August, but since then I have updated it to reflect September's because October's haven't come out yet. And so in Texas right now, the unemployment rate is 4%, but the unemployment rate fell to 3.5% in September, and as you can see on this slide, it was 3.7. So the rate currently being at 3.5 is actually below what they expected. They thought it would stay around 3.7. The number of unemployed persons declined by 261,000, so it's about right around 5.8 million. And then the employed number of workers increased by 204,000 to right at around 158.9 million. So being that the unemployment rate is low, it doesn't make it any easier when you're trying to attract talent. And so before we go any further, I do want to ask a quick poll question. So I know most of you may already know the answer to this, but we're going to do it just for fun. So can you all just share out loud, do you think it is currently a candidate market or an employer's market? Candidate, yes. I think we all can agree to that. Absolutely, it is a candidate-driven market. And so in this candidate-driven market, what does that really mean? It means that employees have the upper hand. They are calling the shots. And so as an employer, you have less bargaining power. There's more jobs available than there are active job seekers to take on those jobs. And so an interesting fact that I read was that employees that are leaving their jobs, they're getting pay increases of at least 8%, if not more. And I personally, and you may too, know of people that have gotten up to like 30% pay increases. In the same industry, some changed industries, but they're getting so much more. But we know that that's not sustainable. So if you are, I'm not trying to encourage you, but if you are considering a job change right now, the market is hot, so this is a good time to do so. I'm not trying to say leave your job, but if you are interested, this may be a good time to change. But again, I don't see this being sustainable long term. But just curious as to if you all would know what is the biggest contributor to the flip in the job market. That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's changed everything. But even bigger than that was what we've heard earlier in some of the other sessions is the Great Resignation. It's kind of what started all of this. Now, interesting thing is in March of 2020, I guess it was, we saw a lot of companies laying off. So it was an employer market at the time. So a lot of companies were laying off, people were losing their jobs. I saw reports that showed like around 100 million people lost their jobs during that time. But then in April, so about a year later, April 2021, that's when the Great Resignation really kicked in, and about 4 million workers quit their jobs that year. And in short, the Great Resignation has really been about people figuring out what do they want to do and how do they want to do it. A lot of people start reevaluating what's really important. You know, am I happy with my job, or do I want to do something else? Can I find something that will allow me more flexibility to be home with my family? They started losing loved ones, or loved ones were sick they had to care for. So again, it just made them really reevaluate what's important to them in their lives at that time. And so what does all of that have to do with the job market? It has a lot to do with it. The Great Resignation isn't over. A recent study showed that around 40% of employees are thinking about leaving their jobs in the next 3 to 6 months. So right now, about 40% of people, so almost half of the workforce, is considering leaving their jobs. And that's a figure that hasn't been changed since, from 2021. And according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, worker retention is more challenging than pre-pandemic. And I am so sorry, I don't think I changed my slide. All right. So when it comes to the Great Resignation, many of you know that this was a term that was coined by Anthony Klotz, who at the time was a professor at A&M. And because employees were quitting their jobs at such a record pace, this term came about. So some of the reasons that employees are leaving their jobs or considering leaving include burnout, feeling disrespected, insufficient benefits, lack of flexible work schedules or remote options, well-being, and health concerns. So those are just some of the leading causes of people that are still quitting or considering quitting their jobs. And so now let's talk about how the current job market is impacting employers. All right. So, and here's just some of the reasons. I'm sure this list can go on for a few more slides, but this is just some of the top things that is how it's impacting employers. Employers are having to offer higher salaries. They're having to offer better benefits, provide more flexibility with the work schedules, make counter offers, or they're having to give out pay increases that they may not have expected to their current employees just to keep them. Another thing is they're having to reduce hiring requirements as far as like education or experience, which is a big thing right now. And even though it may be viewed as something negatively, I think it's a good thing because there may be some untapped markets or talent pools that people haven't considered. For instance, recent college grads, right now, they should have tons of job offers, like companies knocking down their doors, because that's a whole new area of people that you could just give opportunities to and do some on-the-job training versus always going after the same type of candidate that you typically are always do hire. So I don't necessarily think that one is a bad thing. Also, employees are having to provide more in-depth training or open up more management opportunities or start mentorship programs. And the last thing is you're having to move quicker. So if you want a good candidate, you identify them. In order to avoid them ghosting on you or declining your offers or withdrawing during the interview process, you have to move quicker. And the last thing I want to share about this is, it was mentioned earlier in the presentation, I think on the panel discussion, the first one this morning, I didn't include it in my presentation because I was like, I don't know if it's enough data on it just yet, but quiet quitting, we've heard about that. And it's something that it has been around, but it's like trending right now, just like things on social media, it's trending, and it's really all about employees just doing their regular job. They're not going above and beyond anymore. They're doing just enough to keep their jobs. But just last night, I was reading an article that was published November 2nd, and the article said, forget about quiet quitting. Now the new trend is quiet constraint. And so it's constantly changing, but with quiet constraint, they're saying that employees are withholding information. They're not willing to share, like say they come across a new idea or something, a new tool that they think that the company should use. they're not telling anybody about it. They're keeping it to themselves. So those two are impacting employers and how they go about attracting and retaining talent. All right, so while I'm talking, if at any point you all have a question you would like to ask, feel free to do so. You don't necessarily have to wait until the end. All right, so another quick poll question. Is your company currently experiencing higher, lower, or normal rates of employee turnover? So if you all, anybody want to share?
Mine's staying pretty normal. I am an insurance agency.
Okay.
But finding, I should always be kind of bringing the next person in. Training is kind of a long process.
Okay.
Getting people to show up for an interview. I just can't. It drives me crazy that they don't even cancel or just don't show up.
Exactly. Oh, they go into cyberspace. They just disappear off the face of the earth.
Small business owner, and my time is very structured, and I've got this blocked off, and they don't even say like I'm not coming. So frustrating.
Absolutely.
And then you get people that you're going to have to train. They have no experience, and they think they're supposed to start at like $100,000 a year. Or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Reasonable expectations.
Absolutely, you're right. Anybody else wanted to share really quick as far as like if the level of employee turnover has stayed the same or increased or decreased? I know for us at our company, we did experience a period where the turnover had increased a little bit, but I feel like we're at a place now where it's starting to stabilize. And there's some things that are contributing to employees leaving. Some of those things are like lack of training or poor communication between managers and the employees, unclear job descriptions, which we're going to talk more about those later, inadequate staffing levels, so employees are starting to feel like they're being overworked or getting burned out, inability to provide feedback timely. They talked about performance reviews in one of the other sessions I was in, but providing it right in the moment instead of waiting for those annual or biannual performance reviews. Also, the need for more flexible work schedules and high turnover costs associated with hiring and firing workers. All right, so what are some things that we can do to just kind of like get back on track? And I think one of the panelists in the first session said is kind of go back to some of the basics. So taking a look at your current recruiting and hiring process. A recruiting process is really just a company-specific business activity designed to strategically attract, source, select, and hire employees. And so some of the things that will help is just looking at your current recruiting process, making sure that you have a process in place that will help standardize your process, automate it, and bring some consistency. The significance of a well thought out recruiting process is to stay competitive, attract the best talent, stay focused, and consistent and compliant in your hiring. And in today's job market, it's very important not only to do these things, but to keep remote employees in mind as well. So make sure that you are offering ways that you can accommodate them as well. All right. So here's the recruiting process at a glance for those that aren't as familiar, or you may not do as much hiring. It starts with the candidate applying for a job typically, and then they go all the way through the phase where you offer the job and then start the onboarding process. All right, so when it comes to developing a new process, here's some things that you should keep in mind. That when you're developing a new process, the real goal of this is really to make sure that your company can compete when you're looking for candidates in the job market. And while there's a lot of different things that you can do, here's just some things that I feel like would be very helpful. And you can see this list, and of course the presentation will be provided, so I'm not going to read through all of them. But another thing is that it is extremely important that when you're developing your new process, that you keep candidates top of mind throughout the entire process. But it all starts with just looking at what you currently have in place. Like you may have a process that's been in place for the past 10 years, and we know a lot of people don't like change, but it may be a good time to look at it and reevaluate it. So make the changes that are needed, so that way you can just make sure that you're staying up to date with what the job market is offering. Look at those that are in current roles. I think someone talked about it in one of the other sessions, making sure you have the right people in the right seats, those sorts of things. So look at what they're doing. Ask your employees, like, are you still happy, or do you want to do something different? And then those that you see that are high performers, are there opportunities for them to grow, move up into a manager or supervisor level role? And then make sure you're updating your job descriptions. This is very important, especially right now. Candidates do not like reading through job descriptions, so you got to get in, say something at the top that will allow them to see right up front. Are they interested in your company? Are they interested in the job? So a few little bullet points about what the job entails, what your company do. Make sure you include salary, your benefits, that sort of thing. If not, if it's too long, then they may not read through it. But also make sure you include language if you are allowing for flexibility, remote options, that sort of thing. And another thing right now that's really big is making sure that you include about diversity. Are you an organization that hires all people, considers all people? So make sure you put some language or an EOE, equal employee opportunity statement in your job descriptions as well. Some of the other things is meeting them where they are. So I know that with my team, we find that some of the younger generations, you can call them, they don't answer. You send them a text message, it's like before you even finish the text message, they're responding. You can see the little bubble lighting up if they have an iPhone. That's just a joke I like to say, but it's true. So you have to find ways to reach them. And then use social media. A lot of people are on social media, so using the different tools besides LinkedIn, TikTok is a new big thing, and I keep telling my team we're probably gonna invest in it at some point, but that's where they're at, so you gotta meet them where they are. And lastly, just make sure you're providing a very easy onboarding process and make it quick, because again, time is something that's not on our side. As an employer, right now, time is not on our side. So if you can make the onboarding process very quick and easy, that'll kind of ensure that you keep those candidates until they actually go through the onboarding. All right, another quick poll. We're gonna talk about the interview process, but I do have a question for you all. So has your company made any changes to your recruiting or interview process since the pandemic has begun? Has anybody, just by show of hands, made any changes? Okay, yeah, a few.
More virtual.
More virtual, okay, yes, absolutely. Do you wanna share? Like in what way, just one way that you all have made some changes?
We're really trying to update the website.
Okay.
The way our positions, we work at Lone Star College,
Oh.
appear to the public.
Uh-huh.
And also interviewing more online first.
Mm-hmm. Before you bring them in, yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, gotcha. All right, thank you for sharing. All right, so when it comes to interviewing, it's something that's needed, it's something that you have to do, but in order to make it successful, keep in mind the purpose of it is really just to assess the candidate to see if they have the skills, knowledge, and abilities needed for your organization and for that role. But also keep in mind the goals of the interview, which is to find out more about their knowledge, skills, abilities, to learn more about their related work experience. Also, is there some desired skills that they can develop if you do hire them? And then lastly, and it was mentioned earlier, is the cultural fit. That is so important because someone can, on paper, have all the experience and then some, but they may not be a good fit for the team or for the company. So keep that in mind as well. All right, and so when it comes to doing some interviews, it's important to make sure it's effective and successful. So there's some things that need to be done before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. We're gonna talk about those now. So before the interview, and I know this may seem elementary to some people, but believe it or not, we have some clients that we've had to basically do some interview training with because they were asking candidates inappropriate things. They were showing up late to the virtual interview, not showing up at all, forgetting or whatever it may be. So I wanted to make sure we included like some things to do before the interview because you have to keep in mind that just like you are interviewing this particular candidate for your company, they're interviewing you as well. They're looking to see, is this a good fit for me? Do I like the people? Do I like the culture? So keep that in mind as well. So, and this applies not only to in-person interviews, but virtually as well. So if you're interviewing virtually, have your camera on. And I know that sounds silly, but some people do not want to turn on their cameras. So things like that, making sure you're in a quiet place that they won't hear a dog barking in the background or whatever. All those things are important to a candidate because, again, they may think that you're not taking them seriously as a candidate if you're not, presenting things in a professional way. All right. Another thing is to have some questions prepared, like look at their resume. We've had, hiring managers get on an interview with a candidate. They haven't even looked at the candidate's resume. Definitely not a good sign for a candidate. So make sure that you're reviewing the candidate's resume, jotting down some questions that you want to ask them, or use like an interview guide that'll help you be able to rank the candidates afterwards as well. All right. So during the interview, here's some things that you need during the interview. The candidate's resume, your questions that you're going to ask, if it's in person, your business card. And then when it comes to the actual interview itself, you want to make the conversation short. Maybe ask them something up front. How was your ride into the office? Or how's your day going if it's virtually or whatever. Make some small talk because remember, that first impression that they get of you is the impression they get of your company. And so you want to make sure that that first impression is a lasting one. It's a good one. And just some rule of thumb is you don't want to talk the entire time. Keep in mind speaking 20% of the time and letting them talk 80% of the time because again, you're trying to get to know more about them. And when you are asking questions, don't come across like you're interrogating them or investigating them. So make sure you're mindful of your tone that you're using when you're talking to them, the reflection in your voice and that sort of thing. And then keep the conversation light. Keep it professional. Not to say you can't make small talk or laugh or whatever, but again, at the end of the day, you're really trying to find out if they're a good fit. And so when it comes to interviews, there's a lot of different types of questions you can ask, but here are some of the most common types. And that is standard, situational, behavioral, and panel. And so depending on the type of role that you're interviewing a candidate for, will help you determine what types of questions you should consider including. For instance, if you're hiring for a salesperson, you may want to ask them a combination of some behavioral and standard questions because it'll give you a good idea of the candidate's potential performance, but also their behavior in the future. All right, and then when it comes to after the interview, here's some things that you would like to do. It's just as critical as the things that you do before and during the interview, especially in today's job market. So after you interview candidates, make a decision immediately. Yes, I like this person. No, I don't. And then let them know, because that's the other thing. If you interview them and then they don't give feedback, guess where they're going? Glassdoor. Put a review. I interviewed this company, never heard back from them. So we don't want candidates to ghost us. We don't want to ghost them. Another thing is if you really do like the candidate, then don't wait. Because candidates today, I know it happens even on our team. The hiring manager will say, okay, I like this candidate. I'm going to call them and make an offer. They wait a few hours. Within those few hours, the candidate, oh, I just took another job. Or they wait another day. They thinking, oh, I can do it tomorrow. It's too late. By that time, they've already gotten 3 other offers. So if you like a candidate, don't wait. Pull the trigger. And then we're going to go to the next slide and talk about, okay, so now that we talked about interviewing and making job offers, here's some things that you can do to help attract new talent, but also once you get them, ways that you can keep them. One thing that I've learned is that, especially in this job market, there has to be a with them. What's in it for me? That's what the candidate wants to know. If I come to work for you, what's in it for me? And so you have to really meet them where they are and just ask them, like, what is it that they want? So before we do that, I think I do have one more quick poll question. All right. So does your company currently offer any additional perks that are outside of the norm? Anybody? Okay, you do. Can you share one?
We did a fuel stipend during the time that the fuel prices were outrageous. I'm still doing it. But
Okay, awesome. Okay, anybody else real quick want to share about an additional perk that you all start offering?
We do, we have Fridays off during the summer.
Fridays off during the summer? Whoo! Where do you work?
We're at Lone Star. We work 4 days, but
Okay.
during the Friday.
Okay, awesome. Love it. All right, that's great. All right, so here's some ways that you can attract top talent. And again, here's, there's a lot of different things you can do, but here's just a few different ways. And again, it starts with something free. You just ask. You ask the employee, what is it that is going to get to take you to come and work for us? Like, what's important to you right now? Keep it in mind that every candidate is going to have a different thing that's important to them. Right now, yes, a lot of candidates are looking for more money. That's the obvious, or our remote options. But in addition to that, what are some other things that just as important to them and will help them make a decision as to if they come to work for you or go to work somewhere else? So it's important to find out from them so that way you can make sure that you keep them happy. And once they share their feedback, based on what they're expecting or needing, there may be some ways you can accommodate them, meet them in the middle. And if you can't, let them know that up front as well, because if you hire them and then you can't meet what you said you were going to do, they're going to leave anyway. So be honest and upfront and let them know that as well. Another thing that will help with that is staying up to date with your competitors. Know what your competitors are offering. That is so important, because guess what? Your competitors are probably reaching out to them as well. And so if the competitor is offering, $1 or $2 more, then you need to know that, because if you come in and offer them $1 or $2 less, then they're going to be insulted and be like, I'm going to take the offer with the other company. And another thing is hiring intentionally. Making sure that you know what you want to hire for. We have a client right now. This is one of my employees, by the way, Lee up here. She can attest to it. We have a client right now who's hiring for a social media manager. And Lee has presented her with so many different candidates. And she keeps coming back, no. But honestly, she really doesn't know what she's looking for, is how it appears. So when you're going to hire, know what you're hiring for. Hire intentionally. Know exactly, okay, this is what they have to have. This is what they're going to do. And this is how I'll know if they're successful doing it. So that's really important, is to hire intentionally, but also hire diversely. It's been proven. There's so many reports that show when you hire diverse teams, there's better collaboration, innovation. It increases productivity. It increases revenue. So make sure, again, that you're diversifying the types of candidates that you're hiring. I think I alluded to it earlier when I talked about recent college graduates. Yes, they may be just right out of college, but if there's some training that you can provide them, they can be just as successful. I had an intern in 2019. He worked for us from January to May. He had no recruiting. He was his senior year in college, graduating in HR, but we gave him an opportunity. And so after he graduated, we hired him on full time. And today, 3 years later, he's one of my top recruiters. So it can happen. So don't rule out people just because you're used to hiring, well, they have to have this, they have to have that. Think about now, what can you kind of be a little bit more lenient with and provide some on the job training. And then recognize your employees. That's important too. People want to feel like, I'm doing a good job. Tell me I'm doing a good job. Just tell them. That's free. That doesn't cost a thing. Show them you appreciate them. Tell them thank you. You're doing a good job. Well done. Something. That goes a long way. It may sound simple, but it goes a long way with employees. And encourage collaboration. I know my team, our company is still pretty much remote, but my team, we go in Tuesdays and Thursdays. I did not ask my employees to come in, but because they saw me and one of the others coming in, they started coming in. And so now everybody comes in the office, and it's just so much more collaboration and impromptu conversations you can have when you're all together. So that's important. And then offer additional perks when and where possible. And so you may be wondering what type of additional perks. Here's a list. But again, there's so many other things that you can offer. But it really just depends on, your budget. You have to know what your budget is. But think about things that may not be as cost, like restricted. There's free things that you can do. There's inexpensive things that you can do. But again, just talk to them and see what they have to say, what type of perks would interest them. But here's just some that you should consider if you haven't already. All right. And then, okay.
Unlimited PTO.
Yes. No, it's a real thing. Now, my company doesn't offer that, but one of my employees, his wife, her company do offer it. And to me, it sounds like, though, because you're given unlimited PTO, most people don't take advantage of it because they feel like they have to be at work more than not. So I think that it could work, I think you just have to consider, know your employees, your company size, the type of work you do. It may or may not make sense to do it. His wife works for, I think, like an interior design company. So maybe it works for them. But there are a lot of companies that are starting to try it. But from what I've heard, most people don't take advantage of it because they feel like, I'm not being productive or I'm not performing if I'm always off, if I'm taking off every other month, to go on a trip or a vacation or whatever. So, but yes, it is a real thing.
My wife's company did that, and it was great until she took maternity leave, and then it wasn't very good anymore. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, that was a problem. So,
Oh, curious, how long did she take off? Do you
She
recall?
was trying to take off about 2 to 3 months.
Which is about
but
the
it was-
norm. Okay,
it was
so
it was for a company that was a small HR outsourcing startup. So
Oh.
there were 13 people.
Okay.
The first person, they said, "Oh, we have limited PTO." And then she was-
they had it until they didn't. Wow, that's unfortunate. To me, 2 to 3 months isn't an unrealistic time frame to take off for maternity leave. So wow, I sure hate that. So does she still work there?
No.
Just curious. Okay, all right. I didn't think so. I would have left too. All right. Okay. Any other items that's listed on here that are surprising to you all? No? Okay. All right. So this is a lot of information that I'll share today. I know it is. And so you may be wondering like, okay, this is a lot. How do I do this? You may want to consider partnering with an RPO or just a third-party agency that can assist you with all of this. And so curious, this is my last poll question, so no more after this. Does your company currently use a third-party agency or an RPO? By show of hands, any of you? Yes? Okay, which one? Agency or RPO?
I have both actually.
Oh, wow.
I have
Okay.
People doing 2 different things right now.
Okay, awesome. What about you? What about you? Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought she raised her hand.
Yeah, it's a small company, just 2 or 3 people that we've used for probably 7 years now.
Oh, okay.
But,
Okay.
Cheryl Bredesen is
Okay.
her name, and it's her company.
Okay, awesome. All right, sounds good. All right. And so recruitment process outsourcing is what RPO stands for. And basically, it can be an extension of a company's HR department, or we can act as like your on-site recruiter. And the solutions can be customizable based on what your company's needs are. And the pricing would be based on the services that are rendered. And so this is G&A's RPO solution. I mentioned to you all earlier that I have a team, so I have about 10 employees on my team. And so we handle all of our corporate recruiting, but we also do recruiting for our clients as needed. And some of our clients, they just need comp surveys. So you need comp surveys? We got you. One of my employees, I think she just did 12 to 13 for one client. Sometimes they don't have job descriptions. We ask them, can you send us your job description? They send us 2 or 3 sentences. We're like, no, this is not a job description. So we'll help them build out job descriptions. Sometimes they just have too many candidates that applied. I have 500 resumes, don't have time to go through them. We got you. Whatever your need is, we got you covered. So you may want to look into it and consider it. All right. And so just to kind of recap what we talked about today. So with the unemployment rate being low, again, there's not a lot of time, to waste looking for candidates and then finding them and then losing them. So make sure that, you come up with some creative ways, whatever works for you, to keep employees and retain them. But keep the candidate top of mind. That is so important. If you don't remember anything else I say today, keep the candidates top of mind. And once they become employees, keep the employees top of mind. Understand the job market is critical. So you have to know what your competitors are offering so that way you can be competitive. Look at your current recruiting and hiring processes and see where there may be some changes that need to be made. Make sure you have a streamlined interview process that's quick and consistent to make better hiring decisions, but also determine what perks and benefits you can offer based on what your employees want and need. And lastly, if you would like assistance, in doing all of these things that we talked about today, consider using an RPO solution. And that is it. So thank you all for your time. All right, I think we have 3 minutes for questions, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and I saw y'all raising your hands, but I couldn't tell how many fingers you were raising. All right, so any quick questions?
No, but I have a comment.
Okay.
I spoke this morning at the opening of the conference.
Okay.
Our COO is at the lunch table, I think, today.
Uh-huh.
He's who you would talk to about HR.
Oh.
Outsourcing.
I would love to.
College, we have about 900 or 1,000 full-time faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have about 1,200 part-time instructors in continuing ed. And people don't apply. People don't know they qualify and to teach.
You're right.
And we've worked with a couple agencies in town, like Burnett,
Mm-hmm.
and sourcing part-time instructors, even though we pay $50 an hour, is extremely difficult.
Yes. Oh,
And,
that's a lot too. Oh, $50.
Jeff Connor himself has about 130 a year in part-time instructors
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
continuing ed, which does not require anything past a bachelor's degree, sometimes no degree at all.
Wow. Okay.
So we do need help.
Oh, okay. We'd love to have that conversation. And Lee can confirm that we do have some clients that we're recruiting for teacher roles, teacher assistants as well. So,
Mario Castillo is his name, don't say I sent you.
oh, absolutely not. We did not even have this conversation. What are you talking about? We didn't have this conversation. Thank you.
Gray suit, short hair here. Charcoal gray. Charcoal gray suit.
Please, if there's any other questions that come up afterwards that you guys think about, listen, the Behoove You to use the Behoove app, go ahead and put in your questions.
Put this right here because I think I have to do a picture. All right. Thank you all so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.